I need you frightened. I need you hopeless.
Welcome to the chaos. This is the Reflections Horror Podcast, a horror movie podcast for the girls, the gays, the non-binary baes. We are back again. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Cale, and this is the Black Christmas 2019 episode. Before we jump in and get started, I just want to drop a quick content warning that this movie deals with themes of SA, misogyny, and harassment. If those are sensitive topics for you, feel free to skip this episode, and we will see you next year. Take care of yourselves. Lisa, why don't you set up the scene of what we're dealing with Black Christmas 2019?
Well, everybody buckle in. This is going to be my 3-hour dissertation on how this is this is just a feminist iconic movie for me. I decided that this is up there with Jennifer's Body.
Okay.
I made the executive decision on this rewatch.
Excellent.
So, before I dive into 2019, I'm going to paint the scene of this franchise, if you will.
Yeah.
So OG Black Christmas, 1974. One of the classic horror movies, in my opinion. Then you have 2006 Black Christmas, also known as Black Xmas in some capacity. And then you have this masterpiece of Black Christmas 2019. Google also brought up, allegedly, which I couldn't find these anywhere, 2016 Black Christmas, The Night Billy Came Home.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
As well as a 2021 Black Christmas remake where they allegedly go after frat brothers instead of sorority sisters.
Oh, okay.
But like I said, 2016 and 2021 could be, I don't know where those live, but Google did populate them. So I'm assuming they exist somewhere.
Exist. They're somewhere.
Yeah. And then a little bit of a backstory that I find amusing for some who may not know. So Bob Clark created Black Christmas 1974.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Clark also went on to make The Christmas Story. The popular 1983 Christmas classic that grandma and grandpa are going to sit down and watch during family Christmas.
With the kid.
The kid that gets the tongue stuck to the pole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same guy, just for everybody's information.
That's actually wild.
Yeah. Some other things. So Roy Moore wrote the OG 1974.
Mm-hmm.
On IMDb, he is credited as also writing Black Xmas.
Oh.
But we've been catching more of these in the credits of Black Xmas.
Mm-hmm.
It is listed as based on the screenplay by Roy Moore.
Okay. So that,
I feel like
that lends probably less that he worked on it and more that this is them crediting him.
Correct. He has some sort of IP that got him onto IMDb for that.
Gotcha.
So, and then my last fun fact, and then we will finally dive in.
Yeah.
Only because we just recently had our Friday the 13th in December 2024.
Yeah, 2 days before a full moon.
Yeah.
During Mercury retrograde. Shit was wild.
We were all going through it. Black Christmas 2019 was released on Friday the 13th in 2019 in December.
Okay.
And I was like, okay. I am actually obsessed with this movie. Actually obsessed.
That's pretty cool.
All right.
Good tidbits.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, and that is only the tip of the iceberg.
We love trivia here.
So, Blumhouse movie. It is written and directed by Sophia Takal. I hope I'm not butchering that. As well as April Wolfe collaborated as a writer as well. This movie was filmed in New Zealand because they had to shoot in the summertime.
Okay.
Because Blumhouse reached out to her and basically was, we have the right to this. We want you to take it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Is she Australian?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
9 months start to finish. From phone call, we have the rights to this. Homegirl, I don't even know how you do that. wrote the whole script.
Yeah.
You cast it. You ship everybody to New Zealand, and then I want to say they shot the movie in like 28 days.
That's crazy
So,
because like you hear all these movies that it takes so long for them to film because then they have to do reshoots and
Yep.
everything. And then also a pretty modest budget, I'd say. It was only about $5 million.
Yes. And it irked me that the budget was lower than the 06 budget.
No,
because,
was it really?
Because of course the men always get more money.
Yeah,
The 06
naturally.
The 06 budget was $9 million.
That does hurt.
Woof.
What were they doing with $9 million 2006 dollars?
Just throwing blood around, I think, and eating eyeballs was the vibe of that movie.
Okay. Well,
So,
as you can tell, I have not seen the 2006. I did watch the 74 one. 2006 is on my list, but I haven't watched it yet.
06 gets in, there's trigger warning, there's like incest involved, and then the kid of the incest comes back with dad, and 06 is weird for me. It's not the vibe. It's not the vibe for me.
Got it.
All right, so back to the plot. We're already off to a hot start. So, I told you it's going to be my 3-hour dissertation about this movie and this franchise because I just love it. I love the lore. I obviously own it. I listen to the director's commentary. I'm here for it. So, we begin with our log line, and then we will assess said log line. Hawthorne College is quieting down for the holidays as students travel home to spend time with their families. But as Riley and her sorority sisters prepare to deck the halls with seasonal parties, a mysterious cloaked figure starts to leave a bloody trail throughout the campus. Refusing to become hapless victims, Riley and her friends decide to band together and fight back against the psychotic Christmas killer.
Okay. Slightly misleading, but also like pretty on the nose with like going with the theme of that, like there's one, right?
Yeah.
But where did you pull that one from?
So I have
I feel like that's longer than some of the other ones.
So I have actually started getting lazy and just pulling our log line from what pops up when you Google it.
Okay.
So when you Google a movie, there's like the right-hand pane that gives you kind of like your quick facts. I've started pulling from there.
I think that is a great idea, just because every streaming platform is going to word it a little bit differently, and people are going to watch different things on different stuff, right? On whatever they have. So I think that makes sense because everybody has Google. Everybody's going to Google. Yeah. Use the Google machine.
Yeah, because Google tells us everything. So, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I like the little blurb of refusing to become hapless victims
Mm-hmm.
because, like, with a log line, you don't want to spread it out and be like mysterious frat brothers.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Then you're like,
want to link something to the intrigue.
Then you're like, well, shit. What's the fucking point? Thanks for telling me everything I need to know.
Right. It's like a lot of modern like movie trailers now. They just give the whole entire plot away. Shout out for the trailer for 28 Years Later for not doing that.
That is on my topic list to yap about at the end of this episode because I am obsessed.
Me too. All right. Okay. Reverse, back on track.
All right. So shall we just dive in then?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
So we open with this wonderful quote in really nice font, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Says, man possesses powers so formidable they can only be considered supernatural. With a proper education, men can wield these powers and go forth into the world. Calvin Hawthorne, 1819, founder of Hawthorne College.
What?
So I feel like we just kick open the door with like, this is what you're buckling in.
Yes, we are establishing the rules, the expectations of kind of what we're dealing with, which is shitty men.
Yes. Spoiler alert: this whole movie is about shitty men, toxic masculinity, misogyny, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah, and then so it kind of like fades into this weird, just like robes and chanting. It's giving very cult.
Yeah.
And like I was like, not so subtle foreshadowing, but I'm like, cults are fun. I can get down with cults. I love a good cult narrative.
Yeah.
That was one of my reading themes last year, was cults. The year before that was cannibals. So.
And I also like the faint, like, so it's like cults, chanting, whatever, and then it takes us into a fire. In it, like, sound design, kudos. It's like this perfect, like, chanting, goes into what to me sounded like wailing,
Mm-hmm.
and then goes into giggling, and we're right into the sorority house. And I was like, oh, that was nice.
Yeah, that was
very
nice.
nice.
Very, very nice sound mixing. So yeah, then we open kind of into our main story. We've got the giggling. We're in a sorority house.
I already have a question for you.
Yep.
So I am obsessed enough, watched it through, took notes, rewatched director's commentary, obviously.
Yes.
On the second take, I realized the first sorority house. Do you realize that is the sorority house at the end? The other group of girls?
Yeah, I did realize that in the second one, and it took me a minute to put it together, but I recognized one of the other girls, so I'm like, oh,
completely over my head.
Yeah,
because I was like, cool, and we'll
Right.
get there. We're not going to jump ahead too far, but I was like, whatever. But then in the second watch, I was like, oh, duh, this is those girls.
Yeah.
First Easter egg from OG 1974,
Mm-hmm.
the unicorn statue.
Yep.
That is used as a weapon in the OG.
Mm-hmm.
Is like in the foreground when she's on the phone.
So I did miss that the first time, but my friend who I watched it with, he caught it.
Yeah.
And he was like, that was in the other movie, and I was like, totally missed that one. But there are a bunch of little Easter eggs that are lots of callbacks and stuff, which I definitely appreciate. I like paying respect to the form, right?
I love it, and doing it well.
Mm-hmm. So we got a phone conversation going. One of the sorority girls is talking to another sorority girl who is leaving, going home, walking in the dark.
Yep.
Snowy, cold. And there's like this conversation because she's missing a white elephant party, right? And like a hint of like, oh, your white elephant gift was a vibrator, which already set the stage for some good
feminism.
Feminism, yeah, definitely. And then so I think the phone conversation ends, and this character, Lindsay is her name. She's walking, and there's a man walking behind her already. Hairs on the back of your neck are raising, right? And then she's looking down at her phone, and she's getting DMs, direct messages.
For those who may or may not know.
Yeah. Direct messages from an account called Calvin Hawthorne, which is the name of the man who had the quote at the beginning, right? And another callback to the first movie in a kind of sanitized way, but in a way it's like a pig and a cat emoji.
Yep.
And I saw that and I was like, okay, I like that. So she's walking and getting creeped out, getting these messages. This man is like looking at her, and she's doing that thing, right? When you're walking alone in the dark and you are gripping your keys, you're putting the keys between your knuckles just in case. And
I think already made by a woman, right?
Oh, like absolutely.
I don't believe that a man is gonna write that nuanced piece into it.
No, definitely not.
Also, random thought in my head, I have heard that it is actually bad to do that because if you do have to connect, it will absolutely like shred the bones in your hand.
For sure.
That I have heard that it's here, so you put it here, so then you're stabbing down.
Oh, that makes sense. That does make more sense.
Just the more you know, just sharing a little tidbit that I've got in my book that we may or may not need one day. And I think just to elaborate on what you were saying, so rewatching 74, so the premise in 74 is someone's calling the sorority house.
Right.
Because obviously it's 1974. We don't have direct messaging. I forgot how vulgar the guy calling the sorority house is in the
original. So it goes on for so long. Like in the beginning of the OG, like the house gets this call and they're all gathered around the phone and they're listening. They're like, the creeper's back, right?
Yeah.
They're listening and he's just saying like the most vulgar, like disgusting things. They're all kind of like horrified.
That's what Cale is alluding to, is they took this horrific phone call, nasty phone call, where the female anatomy is referenced. We will describe it that way. And he does call them pigs. And I like that, like you said, they sanitized it, but still kept the kitty cat emoji and a pig emoji. I was like, that's a good touch.
Which is an interesting note that I kind of didn't realize until I finished the movie, is that this one's rated PG-13.
One probably my only gripe about this. is the PG-13 rating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because 06 got the R rating, so we got
Right.
more kill, more blood, whatnot.
Yeah.
And in the director's commentary, she talks about several things they had to dial back because of that rating.
That's such a bummer.
Sorry, my one gripe.
Yeah.
Because it's like, give it to the woman, but you can only do PG-13.
Yeah. Sorry.
You can
sanitized.
Yeah.
Sanitized for the
Yes.
kiddos. Anyway, so there's a creepy figure following her as she's walking down this winter road alone. But spoiler alert, he's not the creep, because which I think is really interesting, because obviously as she's like kind of looking back and looking forward, and he's kind of smirking, so whether or not he is not the creep, he's still a creep who's still obviously getting off on like frightening this woman, right? But he turns, goes away, and we kind of think that we're safe, we're good, and then another figure pops up in a cloak.
Yep.
To which I put in my notes, in quotes, "Nice cloak, loser."
Just imagine you on a dark street bumping into a very ominous, scary person going, "Nice fucking cloak, loser."
So she's now thoroughly freaked out, right? And this cloak guy kind of is popping in and out, in and out, in and out. So it's leading to some kind of confusion on my part. I was like, is this guy actually supernatural? Are there multiple? Like, which was an interesting setup, right? And so she is kind of like a callback to Run, Sweetheart, Run. She's running up to different houses, like, because she's now being chased by this cloaked figure, pounding on the door, screaming for help. No one's coming to her aid, which is another, I feel like, common trope in a lot of horror movies, and like a common part of my nightmares.
All of our nightmares.
And then she finally comes up to a house, knocks on the door, and then the door opens, and surprise, it's Cloak Guy.
Talk about a fucking worst case scenario. The door finally opens and it's the guy that you think is chasing you.
Yeah, that's
nightmare fuel.
Nightmare fuel, absolutely. So he's like kind of slowly emerging. She's freaking out. She's backing up, and he breaks an icicle off of the gutter. There we go. And which I just think is such a great murder vibe. Like, what better murder weapon than something that just melts, right?
Incredible.
She's knocked into the snow, and he's coming at her, stabs her in the chest, and as she's flailing, this is one of my favorite shots, as she's flailing in the snow, she leaves a snow angel. Which I just think is really, like, I think that, like, again, that's my favorite visual, and I just think it's just so, like, striking, and like in an almost camp way, but in a way that, like, I think fits really, really well. And then I put in my comments too, I was like, if this movie, because I didn't know at the time it was rated PG-13, if it had a little bit more balls, there'd be blood in the snow, and that would be a cool visual too. But now we know why. And then she's being dragged off screen, cutscene, we come to a very cute cat.
We get our title card before in some badass Old English Christmas style font, which I enjoyed.
Yes.
I will just say I'm kind of obsessed with the lighting of that whole scene that you just described, because really your only form of light is like the Christmas lights. Which again, kind of a nod stylistically to the OG. Where like it's dark outside and all you've got is the Christmas lights. It just made me warm and cozy in my little Chucky Christmas sweater that I have on. It just made me very happy.
Mine has a dabbing Santa, so
because this is your Christmas episode. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, everyone. So to our beautiful white kitty, who matches the cat in the OG, like identical.
What? Okay, so was the cat in the OG, was that cat's name Claude?
I believe so.
Okay, it wasn't just it just wasn't shortened to Claudette, because this cat's name is Claudette. So I'm like, again, a very good
naming wise, very similar.
So we got Claudette waking up a girl in a bed, and this is kind of our introduction to our main character. And spoiler alert, not the final girl, because there's not one final girl in this one.
That's a very good point.
Which we do appreciate. There's a whole bunch of them. So our main character's name is Riley. And Riley's kind of climbing out of bed and goes wandering through this house, and we get this introduction to the rest of her sisters.
Oh, we can't skip over the unhinged sorority sister coming storming in saying she lost her diva cup.
Yeah, yes, right, yeah.
And she needs one, to which, does she hand her a pad, or does she hand her a new diva cup that she unwraps and proceeds to place something in her underwear in front of her?
I think it was a second diva cup, which is crazy.
That's what I thought too.
Those shits are expensive.
Yeah.
So very generous on Riley's part.
Also, obviously was never in a sorority. I dabbled with some sorority girls at some point in my dating career, so I have been inside of a sorority house before. And this vibe kind of tracks.
Yeah.
Because, like, there are fucking a lot of women in rooms and places. Yeah. And I'm just like, I can't imagine living like this. But anyway,
Greek life was never for me. Could never, did never, would never.
Did you make note of, we get continuous shots in this one?
Oh.
So when we're in, I was like, oh my God, I think this is our first movie with like a continuous shot.
I do love those.
Because as you say, she comes out and then we're meeting several of the different sisters that come into play later on, but it's continuous. So it's out the door, down the stairs, like around, down onto the main floor.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't cut.
I love those. I love the non-cut ones because there's just so much like, because there's so much that can go wrong in a shot, right? And I just think that it's like really speaks to like the composure and the power of a piece to be able to just do it in one go.
It's hilarious that you say that, because in the director's commentary, I believe who was doing the commentary was the director and then the main character Riley, that actress obviously. They said that continuous shot was one of the only days that they like really went at it because they had to take so many takes of it. So it's just funny. But to me, I think it's worth it because like a continuous shot, I feel like puts you in the environment a little bit more.
Yeah, I think so.
I felt like I was just at the bottom of the stairs, one of the other sisters waiting for them to come down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. There's a lot of power in that. So, at the beginning of the scene, before she comes out of the room, she puts this little like comb in her hair, and then she comes trotting down, talking to some of the other girls, and comes up to who is her sorority little sister, which is a thing that they do, I guess. And she gives it to her little sister Helena. And says it's for good luck, because there's this inference that there's this performance that's going to be happening later, and yeah, it's a pretty cute scene. It's like it's a pretty like, what's this like sister scene? Yeah,
our probably first little nuggets of foreshadowing is diva cup, make a note, hair clip, make a note, because that will come back in later.
Definitely.
And then there's discussion of this orphans dinner that is happening over Christmas break, which I like kind of giggled. I was like, more orphans.
There we are.
Stuck at home over Christmas break. We're getting a theme.
Yeah.
So
holiday themes. Holiday sucks for orphans. That's so sad.
So, and then basically they're just kind of like chatting, basically, and we're kind of getting a little bit of info between the performance and then the dinner, and then Riley basically has to go to class. Yeah,
it's like it's nuggets to kind of establish this rapport, right?
One more nugget: the red dress that I think one of the sisters has, and maybe he
Jess.
To Riley?
Yeah, Jess is trying to give the red dress to Riley. Jess is one of the kind of the four, right? And Riley doesn't want this dress. She's like, you can have it, you can wear it.
Red dress is in the OG.
Oh.
Red dress in a dry cleaning bag.
Oh,
OG, and I believe in 06 as well.
Okay, all right. I love the callbacks.
Nuggets.
Also, further tour through the house, we come across this, very briefly, this freaky looking little Santa thing, which like kind of was like motion detected and made a little like ho 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 or whatever, to which I loudly exclaimed, Chekhov's freaky Santa.
I didn't even, I don't even think I remembered that.
Yeah, I caught it because I was like, there's something up with that Santa. It's going to come out.
Why did we get that shot?
Yeah, why would you get it?
That's
why would you get
hilarious.
it? Because I was, my prediction was wrong, but it wasn't totally wrong.
Yeah.
Anyway, Riley goes to class. We get her, also another interesting part. As she's walking to class, we get a shot of her walking in front of the house where Lindsay, in the opening scene, had been attacked.
Yes. And kids are like rebuilding the snowman
that had been knocked over.
And I was like,
Lindsay was getting murdered.
That's a good touch.
Yes.
That's a good touch.
Yeah,
I guess
absolutely.
that's actually a cohesive plot line because there was no blood in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is out
exactly.
and about. But if the little Susie and Johnny go to rebuild the snowman and they're like, what's this red stuff in the snow? Then you get cops.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
And then we're in class with a very problematic old white man leading what is probably like a literature class.
Yeah, classics
class. And
who's played by Carrie Ells. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Who is his own version of a Scream Queen. He's from the original Saw. He pops up in horror movies all the time, just kind of randomly.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, and also Wesley from Princess Bride. So I saw him and I was like, I know you're a douchebag and I know that you're going to make my life miserable in watching this film, but I do love him as an actor.
Oh, I love that. Well, this problematic man is... I basically just wrote it down as reading from a book and discussing men bonding together men bonding together invented culture to defend against female nature. I was just going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And he basically does this bullshit of like, he reads part from this book that is really misogynistic and very problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And then does the old calls on Riley.
Yeah.
Asks her what she thinks. She obviously goes, well, talking about the author. And then he does the well, this was written by a woman.
Yeah.
One of those.
Right. One of those.
And,
gotcha.
Yeah. And it's hilarious though, because even that nugget, like, is written into the movie later with... we're going to get there eventually, whatever, with Helena.
Yeah.
Where it's like, there are always problematic women that are going to feed into the patriarchy.
Yeah.
We're aware of that. That doesn't make it that we all agree with those women.
Yeah. Well, it's called internalized sexism, right? Yeah. It's like internal, like you're taking in, you're trying to figure out how to find power in this world that has you essentially powerless, and it's like, why not feed into the power of that is already established?
Can you imagine that happening inside of your brain?
Me? No.
Like,
no way.
I can't fathom living life like that.
No, I can't either, but it does exist, and we'll talk more about that later, because I think that aspect of it was one of the most unsettling parts of the film for me.
Oh yeah.
Which also, for me to say that, is interesting too. But again, we'll get closer to that as we go in. But
nuggets before we go any further.
Yes, through his annoying whining, we get that there's this petition going out for him. Oh, nuggets of trivia.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Sorry.
When I say nuggets, I mean my obsession with this film. So, shooting him. Did you notice what's on the blackboard behind him?
Oh, I didn't pick it up.
It's like this map of sorts where he's written words and then connected and whatever. Swine is really big right next to his head.
Oh, wild.
And I was like, well done. And again, to the director's commentary, she comments on it. But because the director was like, I love this shot cohesively.
Yeah.
And, which I'll be curious to hear our conversation about this, because they kind of lost me with this. There is an ant farm on the desk.
On the desk. Yes, there is.
And we get a theme of ants throughout the movie.
Right.
Because you have the ant farm. We get the conversation somewhere in the sorority house about the game of, like, what animal would you want to be and what would you want your friends to be? And one of the girls said, I would want my friends to be ants.
Yes. Yeah, there is an ant theme, which is interesting. I'm not entirely sure what that's trying to say.
So she never explained herself. She comments in the director's commentary about, like, this theme of ants and whatever, but like, never fully explained why she went that way.
Well, yeah, that is interesting, because I feel like there's like the queen ant, right? And then all the little soldier ants are not female. I don't know. I'm not an entomologist, so I'm not entirely sure about my ant facts.
Yeah.
But there is an ant theme.
We're probably going to do some Googling about ants and maybe maybe I'll make a 30-second blurb about ants for the social media to explain this.
I love it.
So, but yes, so to the petition we find out about.
Yeah, through his whining. He's a whiner. He just whines and whines and whines. There's a petition,
as old white men do.
truly. There's a petition going around to have him kicked out. He's unhappy about it. And he is also defensive about it in a really interesting way because he says something kind of strange. He's like, there's not secret meetings and there's no plot to bury women, you know. And to which I immediately said, why does he gotta say it like that? What a freak!
I mean, if you have to explicitly say it, it's probably in question.
Yeah, exactly. So someone wants him kicked out. And then we get a cutscene to Riley walking out of class, and we're introduced to the person who's trying to kick him out. A character named Chris.
Yes. I already skipped ahead. I forgot about we meet another sister. Our girl Riley works as a barista.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, hey, barista babes.
College barista, too.
Yeah.
There we go.
And then this shot in the coffee house is, I think, where we get a little heavy, and we get like the first little peek into Riley's PTSD, really.
Yes.
Which I think we got one reference of it in the sorority house when they were talking about the performance.
Right, very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly, that something had happened previously to Riley, but we didn't really know what. We didn't know the extent. We didn't know how far, like, long ago. Mm-hmm. So we have three sisters in there. Landon shows up. Our first introduction to Landon.
Good old Landon.
Who is giving, like, probably has a crush on Riley vibes, is really the extent of the interaction.
Yeah, I said in the coffee shop we also meet Landon, who initially seems like a good one, right? One of the good ones. Given my instincts when it comes to horror movies and how they like to fake you out, I did not trust him at all.
Spidey senses.
Yeah, my spidey senses were tingling, and then kind of learned that he's just. I questioned him the whole time because it's like trust no dick, but like.
Oh yeah.
He's just a nerd.
Yeah.
You know, he's just an awkward little nerd boy who's like a regular and definitely has a crush on Riley. So
yeah,
he's cool. I didn't learn that until later. I was very hard on him through the entire movie.
I have a nugget that's going to make you change your mind on that later, but we won't dive into that till the very end.
All right.
And then my note says, and then in walks problematic white frat guy.
Yeah. They're everywhere.
That is clearly probably the aggressor, if not one of the culprits in what happened to Riley, because she kind of crouches down behind the bar and kind of like takes a second to try to compose herself, which I think is, again, a man is not going to get this right in the sense of women who have been attacked and then still live within a certain community or environment.
Yeah.
Have the awful experience of encountering that person or someone very close to that situation that really probably should have helped.
Yeah.
And how freaking triggering that is and horrific. Absolutely. And
also extremely common on college campuses, right?
God, yeah.
You know, it takes a lot to get someone expelled, and we learn later that Riley had reported being attacked, and nothing came of it. Nothing was done. Anyway, we gotta rewind a little bit because Chris and Riley are arguing a little bit about this petition, right? Because Riley seems reluctant to sign the petition, and that kind of irritates Chris. And Chris says something interesting because it's like she's kind of railing against just teaching old white men. Yeah. And Riley kind of goes, it's like, well, those are the classics, right? Yeah. And then Chris, who is a black woman, goes, whose classics are they? Because they're not mine. And I'm like, yeah. Word, that's great. So I just had to rewind back to that line because that was powerful.
As a bookseller, I want you to rant on this for a minute. Take it away. It's our 3-hour dissertation.
Oh yeah, I mean classics that aren't old white men.
Well, just like as someone who deals with books all the time, like what are your thoughts on that? That Oh, well, they're the classics.
Right. Well, it's funny because I'm thinking to our classics section, right? And it is a lot of old white men.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, there's like a new echelon of like of things that are being moved into classics, right? So you got like Margaret Atwood, Toni Morrison, and oh, what's her name? She wrote The House on Mango Street, Cisnero, I think. So there are peppering in, but it's interesting because when I'm setting up displays for things like Native American Heritage Month or Hispanic Heritage Month, the awareness months, the heritage months, I'm not often pulling from classics.
Yeah.
So that is to say that the things that are established in canon still are very much rooted in the main canon that you think of, are very much rooted in old white men.
Yeah.
But I think that is there's progress being made on that because there's a lot of authors that have created the form, right? That were never recognized, that were buried.
Yeah.
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 And I'm not unfortunately an expert on that, even though I was an English major. It was a bad one because I didn't read the classics because they were all old white men. So yeah. that's my little book ramble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you look even a little bit, there's more out there, you know.
I would say even to just, again, to me in cinema and movies, like I mean we're guilty of it in cinema as well, like
Oh,
horrifically
absolutely.
guilty. Even when you listen to me talk, like, oh, it's a classic or an OG slasher, they're all made by men.
Yeah.
And I actually started reading what I would consider a horrific book that I picked up. It's called Women in Horror. And I was like, oh, this will be great. And I got through like the first 3 chapters, and it's really about women that have been erased from horror cinema. And it was like, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the names, but it was like this woman created these original horror movies that are like really highly touted.
Yeah.
But then all the credit went to her husband, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I actually can't fucking take this.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I did have a conversation with someone about Frankenstein, and I'm a big Frankenstein fan. And there's 2 different versions. There's there's like the 1818 version, and then there's a version that comes out later. I can't remember the exact year, but one of them is supposedly like Mary Shelley's version, and the other is more kind of heavily edited by her husband. Which is interesting because I was talking to someone at the store about like, he wrote most of that, and you go and you read the
Did
2.
you punch him right in the face in that very moment?
I was a little tempted to, but I can't really do that because I do want to keep my job.
I'm just imagining being on the cafe side and hearing a squeal, and you being like, he fucking said the husband wrote Frankenstein. I had to, and I would have been like, yeah. I'll help him out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I'm assuming it was a man.
Oh, yeah, okay. Obviously it was a man. Throwback to the man who was like, I'm looking for a book called, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Atlas Shrugged. Those of you who know classic books know that Atlas Shrugged is one of like a huge classic book written by a woman, except for it sucks. And if your favorite book is Atlas Shrugged, then you probably suck as a person, just saying it. It's like the libertarian's Bible, right? But and I'm like standing there and I'm like, I've been a bookseller for in total like 5 years, and I'm standing there working in a bookstore, and I'm like, yep, I've definitely heard of it. So and then later he's like, he had to clarify because I was like not literally throwing books at him, but I was like throwing books at him that he might like, and he's like, to clarify, this is for my friend, I don't actually like this book. And I'm like, I don't care.
Sure.
Oh,
I love when I just push us off the hill. All right, back to Black Christmas.
Back to Black Christmas. Okay, so we meet Landon. We also meet Nate, who is one of the girls' boyfriends, Marty's boyfriend, who we later learn fucking sucks.
I was gonna say, we'll get to him. I found him very fucking problematic.
Oh, I did too. It was very like a good character in that it established this really interesting anti-masculinity with he's a not all men kind of guy, right? So we'll get
love
to
that
him.
scene, by the way.
Yeah.
In this, so we're now at the frat house.
Yes.
in meeting these people.
Yes.
So I think I love how Riley is the mom of the friends group.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all had the friends group, especially when people go out drinking, and there are certain roles.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's supposed to be 4 people that perform this.
Mm-hmm.
They're all in the room, they're chatting, Riley shows up, and Riley's like, where is, I think it's Helena.
Yeah, Helena.
Where's Helena? Oh, I don't know. And like you can tell that the other girls are unbothered, and Riley's like, we're in a frat house, like we need to go find her.
Yeah.
And so she starts kind of like roaming the halls,
Snooping, as I put it.
Again, in my collegiate experience, very accurate vibes to a frat house. Lots of doors. Darkness in some aspects. You're trying to open doors, some are locked, some can be opened. This is when she gets her first sneak peek into the hooded thing, right?
Yes, it is. I just need to wind it back really quick, just a little bit, because she's snooping, wandering the halls. In your experience, do frat houses have giant portraits of their frat members in big cloaks with their Harry Potter looking bullshit?
So
that's what there was in this frat house, and I was like, ridiculous.
My collegiate experience in middle of nowhere, Virginia, it was a bit less prestigious and a bit more trap house, frat house vibe.
Gotcha.
Growing up in Columbus, Ohio, on Ohio State's campus, the size of those frat houses and sorority houses probably got some photos of some old white men, if I gotta guess.
Yeah, interesting. This is just so weird. Why do the frat houses and sorority houses always have like the prettiest houses in town? Is what I want to know. I hate that because I like the aesthetic of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so while snooping, Riley / looking for Helena, Riley comes across a room, and we do get this look into a hazing ritual, maybe, and this glimpse of this bust, which, just to rewind a little bit, was referenced earlier because one of Chris's other little crusades was to get the bust of the founder, Calvin Hawthorne, removed from display.
For anyone who maybe hasn't seen it, I feel like I need to translate because I was confused why they called it a bust. Like, to me, it's just a statue. It's a head.
Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah. I am not familiar with the term bust. I was like, the what? And then like they showed it, and I was like, oh, the statue. So just for anyone else who might be clueless, like I was, a statue.
Yes,
of
a statue of the founder. So we learn in that previous scene that one of the frat houses took the statue and have it in their little house.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And it is now crying black paint.
Yep.
Is what it appears.
Yes.
So again, very kind of a quick shot. We see that paint on the statue, hooded figures. They're like putting a symbol on one of the guys' heads, and then she basically sees her way out before obviously she gets caught. She sees she has a little bit of the paint on her fingers from the door.
Yeah, a little bit. And they're chanting fraternus fratum, and I just hated that so much. I was like listening to it, and I'm just like, leave me alone. Like, what does that even mean?
Please get out of my life now.
Literally. So she goes continuing looking for her little sorority sister and comes across her in a room with a frat boy, and who's getting very pushy. And it's kind of like evident that she's quite intoxicated. And she kind of barges in.
Yes.
And frat boy does not like that.
I kind of liked the pacing of this scene.
Me too.
She peeks. You can tell she watches and kind of waits, and really waits for that moment where her friend is clearly no longer giving consent, because it's the no, stop, but she's drunk, and homeboy's continuing to go, and then that's when she barges in. And I felt a bit iffy about the way they wrote it of, obviously she's like, hey, are you okay? And then the guy, of course, being a frat bro, is like, get the F out.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't concern you. And she looks at her sister and goes, "Do you want me to leave?"
Yes.
How did you feel about that? I didn't love that.
I did like it. I thought it was powerful because she's asking her directly what she wants, right? Which is like she's in a situation where what she wants doesn't matter, obviously, to this guy. But I guess I could see it in a way where she could have just stormed in anyway. But I think like explicitly asking Helena like what she wants, I think was kind of actually powerful for me.
Listening to you just comment on that just made me laugh at myself because I guess it's just my personality type. Because you know me, I'm gonna be the one to kick the door in and be like, "Fuck you, we're leaving."
Yeah.
But I think where my brain also went was like, I guess it. I don't know why I processed it that way, but like it's like if you are in a situation where a man and a woman are there, and the woman really is kind of under the guy's control emotionally, you asking me.
That's true.
You know, and it could have been a moment where she might still look at him and go, "No, I'm fine." Well, then what the fuck are you gonna do?
That's true. Well, that's when you kick in the door, right? So, but I think it is like in situations like that, I think it is important to like give as much agency as you can because it's in a situation where her agency could be completely taken away, right? But yeah, I mean, if it's still like red flag, then kick in the door, punch him in the head,
right,
whatever.
In the fucking dick.
So Frappro is still pissed, and he's making these insinuations that Riley has made false accusations. He's standing up for the attacker, Brian, rapist Brian.
White man gonna white man.
Yeah, I put in my comments, I was like, that's very frat of him.
Yeah.
But he leaves.
Begrudgingly.
Yeah, begrudgingly leaves, and Riley is kind of comforting Helena, who's very drunk, mixing vodka and tequila. Done that. Don't do that.
Don't ever do that.
Don't ever do that. She pukes in a basket and they leave it there, which is great.
Yeah, that was a good touch.
Yeah. And then I started getting a little iffy where she's like, I'll send you home, right? Yeah. And I'm like, well, maybe don't do that because we are in a horror. You may not know it, but we are in a horror movie.
You are living in a horror movie. Don't send her alone.
Yeah. But she's packed up in an Uber. Then Riley returns back to her other friends, lets them know that Helena ate something bad.
And
you're
all sorority sisters.
Like,
you're
come on.
You're gonna walk in and be like, the bitch mixed tequila and vodka, and I have to send her home.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's this moment where it's like, okay, well, we are missing our person for our performance. And all of the attention kind of turns to Riley, who we learn had written and choreographed this performance, but was not going to be one of the performers. And then Chris puts like a shit ton of pressure on Riley to perform this, which that scene made me deeply uncomfortable because I'm like just damn, leave Riley alone.
So did you make a note of I think it's Chris who says it, the line that they say to Riley? She goes, "You're just going to keep shrinking and shrinking until there's nothing left of you." And I was like, oh my God. And I think again, a man is never going to nail that dialogue. And I think, and again, this is why our podcast is perfect, discussing this with you.
Yeah.
Because like, I think I'm a little bit of the Chris in the friends group. And I think Chris sees Riley.
Yeah.
And I think sees how she's changed over the 3 years after her assault.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit of like, girl, get back to where you were at. Like, I want you to love yourself. I want you to feel confident. Like that type of
for
approach.
Sure. And I definitely, I like that. It reminds me of, so after reading American Psycho, I picked up this book called Men Who Hate Women. It is a nonfiction book by Laura Bates.
I just like love your reading path. I'd like to make a graph of it.
Yeah. Oh, I love graphs. And there's this one chapter about online harassment and trolls, and about how the effect that trolls have on particularly like female journalists, anyone who's any like prominent woman, like politicians, prominent woman that's on social media getting harassed and harassed and harassed, and how detrimental it can be to just be like, just turn off the computer, just log off, right? You are forcing these women out of these spaces where they should be able to have the freedom that the trolls are afforded to speak their minds, to just still exist, right? They're being forced out of these spaces to avoid being horrendously harassed, right?
Yeah.
So I do see what you're saying there with like the power of saying you're just shrinking and shrinking until there's nothing left. But at the same time, going back to like agency and stuff, I'm like, don't make Riley do anything she doesn't want to do, anything she's not comfortable with. Trauma doesn't work like that, right? You can't be bullied into getting over your trauma. So that kind of made me that irked me a little bit with Chris, because they get in an argument later. Riley calls Chris pushy, and she is. So but fair. I can see some necessity for that too. Anyway, Riley does agree to do this performance, and they get on stage in these little Santa costumes.
It's a very like Mean Girls-esque performance.
Yeah, it is.
Just a tiny touch. Like, I love that they're on stage and like the frat has like an announcer that's like, now the girls from Mu Kappa, and a woman's voice can be heard going, women. Because it's those tiny shits. You would go to a frat house and you would be called girls.
Yeah.
Instead of adult women.
Yeah.
So I was like, that is like that's the good nuance of that.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It is pretty good.
Put it in the history books. I fucking can't get enough of this film. Yeah, and they start on this performance, and what's his name? The assault, Brian, of
or
course.
It could be Brad. I mean, honestly, it doesn't fucking matter.
They're all the same in my eyes. She spots him in the back of the room and freezes as one would. And again, I don't know. I guess I resonate with Chris, because Chris kind of like sneaks up behind her and whispers, "Rebuild yourself, bitch." And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
And she's kind of frozen a little bit, and the other girls kind of pick up, and I guess their cues started. So like some of the other girls start singing, and for me, dare I say, this is the most iconic piece of film I have ever seen. This song.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Truly, and my Christmas gift to you, our listeners and viewers, I revamped the outro of this episode for you, and it is that song, because that's how obsessed I am with it.
It is good. It's very catchy. It's very like.
So the director said she got like a comedian to write it.
Nice.
It's like a comedian that has, I guess, a little bit. I should have made a note of the name, so I do apologize. But yeah, I wrote it, and I'm like, it is brilliant to me, because they basically sing-song their way through the fact that Riley got roofied and assaulted in the frat house.
Yeah, and it's pretty good. Leading up to it, I was like, what is this performance right now? Because it's very like kind of like flouncy, like dee.
I guess I didn't preference. So it's to the tune of Up on the Rooftop.
Yes.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, 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 dun.
And I was like, what is going on here? And then when it kind of shifted gears and kicked into this like this song, this declaration of calling out this assaulter, then I was like, okay, that does rock.
I'm so obsessed with this song that it is on Spotify, and I actually had, so obviously we work in retail, so Christmas music is playing 24 hours a day, and so I was like, I would love for this to come on.
Maybe I'll be brave and sneak it in there.
Our owner would probably have a stroke and pass away.
Yeah, probably.
Anywho, can't win them all. Okay. So they basically perform, and then obviously the crowd catches the tune and starts like booing and throwing beers, and
the men in the crowd are booing and throwing beers. The women, on the other hand, there's cheers. Yeah, which is again another very nice touch.
Yeah. And then they kind of jog off the stage, and there's a moment where Riley turns back to, I believe it's Chris, and says, I think they'll think twice about assaulting someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say we are using the term assault and not the term of what actually happened for fear of YouTube and algorithms and whatnot, banning this, limiting this video.
The capital A algorithm.
Yeah. So, which is a shame. You should be able to discuss it.
It's weird. It's weird the way the algorithm works, which is, you know, I got other rants about that. Always.
Yeah, always.
You know, maybe we'll do an internet horror one and then I can really dig in. Or maybe someone will write a really good algorithm horror and then I can just lose my mind.
Well, I think we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're getting more AI stuff and whatnot. But anyway, this is my dissertation. We can't take too many right-hand turns here. I know.
So trying to be focused.
So, they run out and Landon follows.
Landon follows. He's, you know, I put Landon the nerd from the bookshop makes another appearance and praises Riley for her bravery. I still don't trust him. Chris gave him the stink eye, which is very validating for me personally.
Yep.
But like Landon, like at this point, it's like he seems very earnest and like nice, and he just kind of seems like just this nerd, right?
They always do in the beginning.
Yeah, that's true. And then we get a cut scene to Helena at home, packing and puking, which probably isn't the best combination.
I'm just baffled they sent this girl home alone.
Alone, by herself. Yeah.
So this was not mentioned in the director's commentary, but my brain connected these two moments. So she's home alone. We get her in the bathroom, like brushing her teeth or like mouth washing something.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's supposed to be like our first moment of like a little bit of tension because she bends down to spit, and it's kind of the way it's shot. You're assuming someone's going to be behind her, but no one is.
No one is.
In the OG, the drunk house mother also has a bathroom scene.
That's true.
Where she's like singing and dancing in the mirror or something and
pulling a bottle of whiskey out of the back of the toilet, just drinking it, wearing this terrible muumuu. It's great.
So I felt like those were similar.
Yeah.
I also felt like in the original they made all the girls drunk, which I found weird.
Yeah. I would say though that that's kind of, I mean, this was the 70s, so it's like I was reading something about like how kind of like ahead of its time the one from the 70s, because they have this whole line about abortion. This is before Roe v. Wade. Yeah. You know, there's girls drinking, being promiscuous, smoking, and it's like that wasn't often depicted,
portrayed.
Yeah, so gotta give it some credit there.
Go on, Bob.
Anyway, not a great vibe with Helena by herself, packing and puking. And then sure enough, another man in a cloak, another cloaked loser, pops up in a freaking mask
because she starts getting messages as well.
Oh right, yes,
so
she does.
I also just love that this app is called Yip Yap.
Yep.
I'm always so I just love the way, because obviously everybody has to invent apps for their movies to utilize because nobody wants to buy the rights to TikTok. We're just going to name it something else.
Well, you know what's funny is that when I was in college, there was an app called Yik Yak. That was like a, right? So I thought maybe that was like a little bit of a callback to that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I remember I was on Yik Yak way too much.
But yeah, so we get another cloaked figure. I do like when we start to get the vibe of the cloaked figure in the house. I like the way it's shot because it's just kind of shot in a way of like, is he in the room? And then we just get like a shot of like the hallway of like, okay, is he going to be walking up to the door here in a minute? So like, I think they layered in a lot of like, where is he?
Yeah, which they do kind of whenever there's a cloaked figure in the screen. There's lots of like, where is he? What's going on? Is this supernatural? Is this just a guy?
Yeah.
And which I think is a standing question throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she gets attacked, then cutscene, Riley jumping awake, nightmares about her own assault, which is understandable after doing that performance, reliving stuff, seeing her attack her. Yeah. Then, where are we? We go,
I just made a note, more continuous shots, because we're in the sorority house. She comes out, walking down, so we're kind of getting her in the house again. And then really the only thing of note, she picks up Claudette, the cat,
Mhm.
and the cat has black paint on the paws.
Yeah, and they're like, good prank, putting paint on the cat paw, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
strange.
And then I didn't make a note of which girl this is. It just said girl. One of the girls is upstairs looking for the cat.
Oh,
And then we get hooded figure has come out with a strand of lights.
how seasonal.
It's so
How
seasonal.
festive.
It makes me so happy. Strand of lights, boom, around the neck, you're done.
Yes. We also, is this before or after because we get a scene where they all go shopping for a Christmas tree.
This is where we're at next.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So they're all out shopping for a Christmas tree, and then Riley is getting messages from this Hawthorne account too.
Yes.
And she's also having like some weird feelings about like Lindsay missing.
Yeah.
And like,
again, mom of the group.
Yeah, mom of the group. And that someone missed their train. I think, was it Lindsay or Helena?
I think Helena's mom calls her.
Yeah.
And it's a good progression of tension because she's getting these I said yak messages. She's getting these messages from Calvin Hawthorne, and then she gets a phone call from an unknown number. And it's done really well because the phone call clicks in and it's kind of like scratchy, so you're like, is this somebody dying?
Yeah.
And then it's like, hello, and then it's the mom calling to check in on the
that was
sister.
good. Also, I think, this callback to how, like, the original movie with the phone calls, and there's, like, lots of garbly, lots of different voices and stuff happening. And I do just really quick want to go on a little note about the way that modern movies are kind of forced to tackle this existence of social media, right? I was reading a couple reviews, and I've read this one interesting point where it's like, present day writers and directors of horror have no choice but to account for the intrusive hands of technology in all of our lives. And Black Christmas addresses this in what must now be the regular fashion, which is integrating social media into the horror, right?
That's real.
Yeah, and I think that about that a lot, because like there are movies that could not be made now, that were made before there was like smartphones and instant messaging and stuff. It's the way that it has affected storytelling that I find very interesting, and that can be done in a really good way, but oftentimes I find isn't.
Yeah.
In this instance, I think it was done well.
So I had this thought when we watched The Sacrifice Game of everybody loves to do this nod back to set in the 80s, set in 70s, 90s. And it's like, when you think about it, it's like, okay, well, that's like, if you go back to the 70s, you're almost 60 years removed now at this point. At some point, are we going to get a shift to your kind of throwback movies takes place in the 2000s? But now, to your point, are people just doing these throwbacks so they can stay in the 70s, 80s, and 90s and not have to write in technology?
I think, yeah, because there are stories that just, there are plot lines and plot devices that just would be non-existent because of the existence of technology now. Like, this is not a horror example, but there's this episode of Seinfeld where they're going to pick up, I think, George from the airport, right? And they're going back and forth to both of these airports and trying to call the airport and call this to figure out where George has landed. And I'm like, and it's such a funny episode, but it could not be done now because it's like, well, where's your phone? Why
check the app? Everybody shares their location.
Exactly.
That's what you really need, because I think now college students share their location I think out of safety. Is for women, I think especially out of safety. We need a horror movie where that comes into play.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sure we're working up to it. I'm sure we're getting there. I'm sure that it probably exists. But yeah, I just think about that a lot, because the way that technology and storytelling kind of butt heads.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my little aside on that front.
That aside.
Thank you.
So we got our tree. We're back in the sorority house.
Yes.
And do you remember shitty boyfriend's name? Your brother.
Nate.
Nate. So,
Nate.
nugget for you all from the director's commentary. So, this is kind of the first time Nate kind of snaps.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's like, hold the tree straight. And I even made like a quotation of it. And he's underneath the tree, and then he stops, and he gets out, and he's like, I'm not being grouchy. I just want to get the tree up.
Yeah.
And the director said she took inspiration from The Shining to write his role.
Okay.
And once she said that, I was like, oh, I can get a Jack Torrance vibe from him.
Yeah, a little bit. And he has another moment where he kind of snaps a little bit when they're all getting ready to pile into the car and go and get the tree. And Marty's like, oh, he's just mother goosing or father goosing us, right? Yeah. I will say though that like the worst fights I've ever witnessed are from couples my parents trying to put up a Christmas tree. So there's something about the act of putting up a Christmas tree that will bring out the worst in a relationship. So just
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Just not to give Nate any credit, but like just there is something rage inducing about it.
And she is holding it at like a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
And then I made another note that Riley is in fact apparently the only friend that is caring and concerned about any other woman on campus. Because she again is talking about Lindsay or Helena takes her to.
She's both. She's worried about both the fact that both of them are missing.
So she heads off to campus security.
Yes.
To try to talk to someone, and we get, in what is my opinion, a very cool shot of she's walking out of the sorority house. Again, 2 women missing on campus. I'm probably not walking alone anywhere, but go on, Riley. And she is walking away from the sorority house, and it's shot to where we're outside, but we get a view of like the outside patio in the sorority house, and we get a dead body of one of the girls. Did you miss that?
I missed that. What?
I mean, it is really quick. Like if you look down at a phone, you would have missed it.
There's a lot of that in this movie. Actually, there was a couple scenes where it's like the messages and then the papers that we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
It's just so fast that I'm like, I'm not. Lost my glasses.
That is hilarious that you missed that. So yes, dead body on the porch. In case you blinked and missed it as well.
Yeah, great. So Riley goes to security.
Yes.
We get our classic useless fucking security card trope.
Landon's there again.
Yeah, Landon. Landon's there again. Hi, Landon.
I am either questioning how small this campus is or what the fuck Landon's deal is. Which he kind of is too. Which I'm cackling that you would keep a man around that you would have the audacity to look at and be like, have you been DMing me?
Yeah, because she does ask when she's getting those Calvin messages. She does ask, "Is this Landon?" To which he says something. He says something, sweetheart, and I'm like, oh, there it is with the sweetheart again. But yeah, she runs into Landon, and she's like, "Have you been messaging me?" And he's like, "No, I don't have social media, but I get it for you." And I'm like, nerd.
Nerd alert. But, yes, to your point, we then meet one of the most useless security guards on the face of the earth, as they often are. Like, the cop in horror movies, or the law enforcement, always has to be completely useless.
Yeah. Again, like a plot device, but also, like, kind of a call to reality.
Yes.
But, so, we get the very typical of the trope of like victim blaming, belittling, dismissing. I put in my notes, very typical, hate him, useless, hope he gets killed.
Which got your hope there. True. And I also think that, doesn't he say a line about like something stupid like 9 times out of 10 I'm missing girls with her boyfriend? And I think that's from the OG.
Probably
it's either from the OG or they use that in 06. It's in one of the other movies.
Yeah. They also drop a little line of like, boys will be, well, you know. And I'm like, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, also that.
Anyway, the security guard does agree eventually, because there's like something that she uses, I can't remember what, to like kick him into gear, right? And then he does go with her to one of the frat houses, to the frat house.
Yeah.
Knocks uselessly on the door. And then is like, well, no one's home, and simply leaves.
Yeah. He's so useless, I didn't even take notes about that. I forgot he went to the frat house with her because he's just an old fat guy.
Yeah, pretty much. So Riley's sticking around to do some snooping.
Snooping a little bit.
Snooping in typical Riley fashion. So she's kind of skulking around the house, and Professor Douchebag from one of the earlier scenes appears.
I called him Creepy Professor.
Okay, well, similar
Both
vibes.
Both track.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is there and scares the crap out of Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Bumps into him.
Yep.
She helps him pick up some papers and
Yes.
notebooks that we just get a flash of
very brief
women's names,
mm-hmm.
to which it's long enough where you can tell Riley has clocked it. It's probably something we need to be worried about, but that's really all.
And it happens so fast. And like, I couldn't see it. The TV's too far away, and I don't know where my glasses are. Anyway, so things just kind of keep building, and Riley keeps getting more and more unsettled. He's snooping around for a key to get into the frat house for some reason that he gives.
He tries to be like, says something about he's looking after the house for the boys.
Right.
And says that he'll let her in.
Yes.
Which thankfully she's like, I'm not gonna go into this house with just you. And I just made poor Riley keeps having all these awful interactions with awful white men.
Yeah, really though. He does say something kind of interesting because he's talking a little bit about the frat, like how much it means to him, how much he's like, Hawthorne just means so much to me. There's all these sacrifices that have been made for this school or whatever, and I'm like, literal sacrifices? Like, what are we alluding to here? But yeah, so even more unsettled. And then we also learn that a video had been taken of the performance and then was posted online.
Yes, and Riley did not know yet.
No, did not know and did not appreciate. This video had like 30,000 views. So she doesn't go into the house, and she kind of heads back to her sorority house.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of cutscene to nighttime now, and they're all in the house, all being Riley, Chris, Marty, and Jesse, and then also Nate for some reason.
You are so good with names. I'm like friend number 2 and friend number 3.
Right?
Sorry, I don't do that much research on it.
That's okay. I just like to know who I'm dealing with, right? And Riley kind of comes in swinging, pissed at Chris, who had posted the video, and Chris is also pissed, and there's just kind of this tumbling into just being angry at each other.
Well, and it was kind of interesting, right? Is like, my perception was, I think her biggest concern was the video posted online catches the last blurb where they were running out of the room, and she turned around and said, maybe this will teach them not to assault another girl.
Yes.
And my perception was Riley did not want 40,000 people on the internet to maybe know that she had been assaulted.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. I had also, in my first watch, I like rewatched a couple scenes just to kind of like figure out what they were saying, because I missed what they said. I knew that there was something at the end that was like oddly incriminating, but I just missed it because it was so fast and so kind of garbled, and my subtitles didn't catch it. So I was like, I'm old, I don't know what they're saying.
Help me.
Help. Yeah, and then Chris is like kind of like fired up about it because she's like, good, I'm glad they see this. I'm glad that, we have to keep fighting because they're not gonna stop, kind of thing.
And then when they're fighting, this is when friend's name that goes upstairs.
Jess.
This is when Jess literally is like, I get really uncomfortable when you guys are fighting. I'm gonna go find light strands that work, basically. So again, we're in a horror movie. Why not go upstairs all alone? Because people haven't been breaking into your house for roughly an hour.
It's funny because one, I am definitely her. I'm like, if you guys are fighting, I'm gone. I don't want to be around that energy. And then two, I wrote, I was like splitting up. They don't know they're in a horror movie.
They haven't figured it out yet.
So yeah, it just goes up into the attic. Call back to the original movie where the psycho in the original movie was living in the attic. Spoiler alert.
Yep.
So yeah, she's digging in the attic for some Christmas lights.
I thought that this kill is shot really well, but
Yeah.
shot well for PG-13.
Yeah.
If it was R, you could have given me a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rummaging in the dark,
Yes.
plug in the light strand, oh, this one works, and guess what, there's a hooded figure, but to me it kind of looked demonic more in this scene.
Yeah,
which
in
I'm
the
like,
shot.
obviously we're not working with the demon, but like I felt like the frame of it was a bit not consistent with what we had seen of the other hooded figures.
Yeah, I think so. I think that it was a decent jump scare, and maybe that was like part of it.
What they were going for.
What they were
Probably.
going for, yeah.
So now another sorority sister down.
Gone.
And then we are back in the kitchen for an interaction that I really enjoyed and feel like, again, woman nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated the role of the boyfriend.
Yes.
Because we all know this man.
Oh, yeah, they're everywhere.
Runs in the circle by association, because obviously some women choose to date men. I guess I shouldn't say choose. That is what they are attracted to, and that is the life that they live. So therefore they are in the circles, and at some point hit their breaking point and feel like they need to speak up for their kind.
Their kind. Yeah, basically, so I didn't write down everything he said, but he kind of went off. He's like,
again, to the Shining nod, the way he shot in this, so they're standing like around the island.
Yeah.
And the initial shot of when he enters this conversation, his back is to them.
Yeah.
And he kind of, it's like this look of like, what did you expect?
Yeah.
And it's giving Jack Torrance to me, like, table by himself.
I see it for sure. He kind of goes off, and he has reached his limit with them kind of ragging on men or whatever, and he literally says the words, "Not all men," which I don't know. To me, regardless of the scene, if I hear a "not all men," I'm like, you are one of them, you know?
You have Chris's response.
Yeah,
Chris goes, "Did you not all men me?" And I was like,
yeah, definitely.
I thought that was perfect.
Yeah, and he's just like this, just all this cowardly, also kind of victim blamey, kind of what did you expect, like blah 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 blah. Playing into this like very, toxic masculinity, this victimization that so many like. That, again, going back to Men Who Hate Women, the book by Laura Bates.
I thought you were just saying back to Men Who Hate Women. I was like, oh, here we go.
But no, back to this book, there is, this victimization that so many subcultures on the internet kind of really dig into, right? Where they feel victimized, right? They feel attacked by this rejection of patriarchy, by this like standing up against abuse and harassment and all this stuff. Highly recommend that book if you're at all interested in kind of these this movement that we're seeing of like just.
I hate to even call it a movement, but it is.
It is a movement. Yeah. It is now in the White House kind of movement,
Correct.
But I guess I'll come back to this quote later. But there is just an interesting perspective of like the way that men hate feminism, and how they also seem to hate they just confuse themselves, I think, with like hating feminism, which is the thing that is out to defeat all of these problems that are affecting men.
Yeah.
Right? But they just hate any kind of thing that is doing that because they're so attached to this toxic masculinity that just completely runs their entire tiny brains.
Yes.
Anyway, we'll come back to that quote in a little bit. But Nate gets kicked out.
What's the girlfriend's name?
Marty.
So Marty's like, oh, okay. Nope. If I gotta pick a side, we're going with the sorority sisters. You gotta get out. The director, which actually it's in, so they have deleted scenes and extended scenes, and this is one of the scenes that they have an extended cut of because she said, due to the PG-13 rating, you can only say fuck once. So they have an extended shot of this where they're basically being like, get the fuck out, fuck you,
Nice.
and they had to cut it because they hit their fuck quota. But she pushes him out the door, and again, I thought it was such a good touch. He goes, you're being hysterical.
Yep.
Oh. Like,
yeah.
Don't ever come back.
Don't ever come back. Don't ever come back. Spoiler alert, he fucking comes back.
But the good news is when he does come back, he gets an arrow in the face, so.
Yeah, because very quickly escalates from here.
And I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
I keep talking about it, the tempo, where it's like, we're building, we're setting, we're building, we're setting.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? You're into Act 3. The shit is popping off. Here comes arrows flying through the house.
Actual arrows. And I was like, I think I said out loud, I was like, oh shit, is that a crossbow? It's not. It's a regular bow, a long bow. Yeah, bow and arrow. Cloaked guy in there shooting a bow and arrow. Yeah. Everybody's freaking out. Marty gets grazed.
It starts though with the messages. So they kick the boyfriend out.
Right.
Phones start dinging, and then arrows start flying. So again, very good.
Yeah, very, very good setting the kind of the eeriness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so everybody's freaking out. Marty gets grazed. They're running upstairs. Of course. Everybody drops their phones.
Of course.
Everybody drops their phones.
How often do you think you drop your phone in a day?
More often than I should, considering I don't have a case, but not that much.
Yeah, I'm like,
not if I'm in the middle of a life or death situation, then I'm not clinging onto my phone.
Yeah,
right?
like when I fumble a phone, it's usually when I'm like not fucking paying attention.
Right.
Or I like go to set it down, and I'm literally just not paying. If I'm looking at it. Yeah. And something happens and I need to run. Like, I just feel like I'm going to retain it.
It's instinctual, right? So maybe that's a little bit of a note I would have with a movie is that if we're going to be engaging with technology, maybe we should be engaging it in a way that's realistic, where in that everybody is attached to their phone all the time.
I just wonder if we will ever see the death of the tropes of phone has been dropped. I think you could keep phone is dead. Because the battery life on phones is abysmal and we're all on them all the time. So I think you can keep that trope. Yeah. And then the trope of no service. I think the trope of no service will have to go.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just not really a thing anymore.
It's not a thing anymore. And yeah, I hope so, because again, it's like it's a plot device, right? It's doing that because they know, because of this existence of this technology, that the plot would not go the way that they wanted it to. Yeah. So they have to get it out somehow. And sometimes it's in vaguely lazy ways. Not to say, it's a little lazy. Anyway, they all drop their phones. They go and they hide in a closet. Marty's bleeding. Chris is helping keep the blood, and then they're like, we don't have our phones. We need to go get a phone so we can call the police. So Riley picks up a broom or something.
Like a little baddie, just snaps it over her knee, and she's like, I got it. I'll go back out.
Yeah. And so very bravely goes out to where the psycho is roaming.
The sound design of silence, basically, as she goes to creep back out is very good.
Oh, yeah.
I think it really builds tension.
Yeah, it does. And that's a note that I made too. I was like, I'd say it is a little bit of a slow burn. It's not long enough of a movie to be like that much of a slow burn, but when it kicks up, it really does. Like things just happen and keep happening.
Yeah.
I have just randomly about Riley. That is the bisexual Bob. Like, so this is a random little
checks
note
that box.
There. Yeah,
yes.
There you go. So Riley creeps downstairs, is going for a phone.
Yes.
Cloaked guy pops up again.
Yes.
To which my friend said, Darth Vader ass bitch.
Accurate.
True. Get myself killed by insulting the people who are trying to kill me, right? And then a struggle commences.
So before we get there,
yes,
we're getting kind of like cut scenes between the two friends that are left in the closet and her. And so we get a scene between the two friends left in the closet. You're gonna laugh at me. So they realize the fourth friend is missing that's dead in the attic.
Yes.
Okay. The girl that's injured goes, "We're ants, Chris." My brain, I was like, "Oh, was that girl pregnant?" And then I watched the director's commentary, and I was like,
"No,
I was like,
ants."
I was like, "Oh, actual ants." Yeah, that's where my brain went. I was like, "Oh, she was pregnant. That's a bummer." But
that's a bummer. Which would be a callback to the original movie because there was that whole plot line where she was pregnant, wanted an abortion, and
but not pregnant. They're actual ants because that's
ants.
the
animals she picked.
Yeah,
represent
what we're
friendship.
sprinkling through.
Yes.
But so now, and I said, so now in true horror movie fashion, we're all split up. Everybody's alone.
Yeah.
Because Chris is going to look for her.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, homegirl's injured in the closet, and then Riley is now being assaulted downstairs.
Yes. Before that, though, Nate does bust back in. Does he?
I said,
yeah.
Before the struggle, yes.
Yes.
Because I said, this fucking boyfriend, ... Because he's talking loudly. And
yeah.
Riley's basically trying to be like,
there's someone in the house.
One, if you walk into a house and you see someone you know holding a broomstick they've snapped in two, aren't you going to be like, what's going on? Why do you have that?
Yeah. Why do you have that?
That would be my first question. I would be like, why are you holding a snapped broomstick?
Yeah.
And no one else is around. Hello.
Yeah.
Contextual clues, boys.
Well.
But anyway, he is not. So he's talking really loudly, and Riley is trying to be like,
yeah, shut up.
Shut up. There's somebody in the house.
Yeah.
And then he pulls there's like it's probably the axe they cut the tree down with because it's on the floor. Mm-hmm. And he tries with this, like, nobody's coming after my women. Really? Because as he's saying that, arrow to the head, and I'm like, a little bit of me on the inside.
Yeah.
Like, yes, get him out of here. I don't need him anymore.
But just a quick note there. I don't know if you caught this. Right before all of that happens and like he sees the figure, there's this the tinnitus ringing. Oh, and he's like, he's like, I have a really bad headache or something like that, right? So there's something going on there because then he starts acting like super macho and super like, whatever.
Yeah, you don't have a headache. It's actually toxic masculinity.
Yeah, just
your brain.
Yes.
Can we all just start thinking that when a man's like, oh, I got a headache?
Yeah.
That's just like, toxic masculinity in there, man. Just
rattling around.
Drink some water and
hydrate.
Read a feminist book.
Yeah, please. Yeah, so he gets shot in the face. Riley is then forced to confront our little masked man. Before Nate died, he did toss his keys at Riley and was like, get everyone out. I'll take them on, right? Yeah. So those keys come back into play in the struggle. Riley grabs them, bunches them up, and
before we get there, so thoughts on slashes on the cheek and then the smearing of the blood?
It was giving another callback to The Princess Bride, Inigo Montoya.
I was just like, I felt like it was a little nod to like rouge on the cheeks and like beauty standards is where my brain went.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm just like so unhinged. I found so much in this movie where I was like, this is what she meant. And she was probably just like, I am trying to write a script in 30 days.
Yeah, right. There is that timing on it. No, I did, because like I said, like Wesley's actor was in this movie, so it's gotta be. I vote Princess Bride just because I'm a sucker for that movie.
But so he cuts her cheeks, smears the blood, and then grossly realizes that they're underneath the mistletoe.
Oh yeah,
and like tries to kiss her basically, and then that's when she's like, "Not today,
not happening."
Oh, but this is when Chekhov's Santa goes off.
Yes,
and that's how she gets space from him because he's being a creeper. Chekhov's Santa goes off. He kind of turns for a minute. She pushes off, goes for the keys, gets the keys.
Yeah.
Straight through the chin. Death.
Check off Santa. What did I say? I let me tell you the shout that I let out when that happened. I was like, I was right.
Again, if it was R, we probably could have done a little bit more with that kill scene.
Yeah.
That's what makes me, because I love slashers and I love gore. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, this movie is incredible, but I would have loved an R rating to get a little bit more brutality.
A little
out
bit
of it.
more. I would say that too, because I didn't, because you know he's bleeding all over her, but it's this black blood. Because call back to the bust and the paint and all, and the weird paint on the cat. Because like these boys aren't boys, I guess. But I was like, is this? Because I assumed it was blood. It was just like some kind of director's choice to make it really dark. So yeah, I was a little confused there. But again, it's like kind of probably going back to that PG-13 rating.
Yeah. But I think for me, I think she was going the route of like this black paint or like sludge or whatever is used in this ritual and is now like in these boys.
Yeah,
like
in the boys. This
toxic
poison.
masculinity. It's poison.
Yeah.
Is the way it's viewed.
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
what it is, honestly.
Yeah. So we get. So there's more struggle. There's another cloak figure that comes up.
And at some point we did definitely skip over the fact Chris does find the friend in the attic.
Yes.
We do get that brief scene where again, nod back to the OG, chair kind of gets spun around and we just see the outline of like a shard of glass in the eye and then the lights around her. Yes. So she's dead, but so at this point the friends have made it downstairs. Mm-hmm. All three of them are downstairs. I have got to get better with names, but it's just who I am. Homegirl with the shitty boyfriend who's now dead. Marty has the axe because there is a hooded figure.
Yes, there is another hooded figure.
Again, to the logistics of things, the one injured person in the group has the axe.
Yeah.
Not my choice. I also had the thought, and this is why I love my slashers, is I'm always running logistics. In these movies, why doesn't the friend group ever flank the attacker? There's three of us, so why would you not go one straight in front of the attacker, left and right, and like someone's gonna have success here?
Yeah, maybe, you know what it is? I think it's because not everybody has played sports.
Oh, that actually might be real.
Yeah. Just my perspective as someone who did not play sports.
All right, so it was not a thought on your radar.
No, I was like, okay, we're all freaking out. We're all scattered. We're all splitting up. People are getting axed. Yeah. So she goes to axe, gets immediately kind of disarmed. Again, and it
like
turned
the tempo to this though.
Yeah.
She goes to swing it and it's like bop bop. Like she like catches her arm and then that axe goes straight in her belly.
Right in her belly.
I will say though, this might be the only horror movie I have seen someone who has been gravely injured or is actively dying actually accomplish something. Because she goes down, he goes to chase the other girls.
Yes.
And she grabs his foot, so delaying. Mm-hmm. And then she ends up being the person that reaches for the phone and calls 911.
Yes. Yeah,
I was
like that.
This is what we need the dying person to do. Accomplish something still. Your task is not done here.
Yeah,
Get in the way. Take somebody down. Get to the phone while he's chasing us.
I'm gonna put that as a note of things to keep in mind moving forward because I think you're probably right.
If you are listening or watching this, leave us a comment if you have another movie where someone successfully actually did something while they
were dying. Yeah. The final sacrifice.
I have got high standards for my friends, clearly. I don't give a shit if you're dying. If we're in the shit of it and you're already on your way out, I need you to help save me still.
Do you remember those like Facebook tag your friend of their role in a horror movie kind of little things? They were all like, there was lots of little tag your friend memes or whatever. I would love to see what our roles would be. I feel like that'd be a fun little game to play.
Oh, that would be good.
So Chris and Riley make it out of the house, leaving Marty to die and call the cops, and they run.
No, not yet.
Not
We
yet.
get the kitchen scene where they're hiding behind the butcher block.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Would
My notes got a little sparse here and there because
Yeah.
I was immersed in the action, right?
Yeah.
And that actually is a theme in my notes.
Well, good for you for watching and enjoying the movie.
Yeah, right.
These scenes, I always struggle with these scenes in slashers because I do not think there would be any way I could hide in a open area.
No.
Closet maybe, because if the door's open, then I'm like, I know that I'm in a bum rushing sort of situation.
Yeah.
Whereas they like go into the kitchen, they grab a butcher knife, and then just kind of sit on the backside. And I'm like, oh, I could never.
Yeah.
And then worst case scenario, they get up and go to creep out, and homeboy is standing on the kitchen island.
Oh, yeah.
I would
very Jurassic Park of him.
Yeah. I don't even know what I would do. Chris thinks she's on her way out. Homeboy jumps off the countertop. Again, shot really cool.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of crouched, so you're at her head height, and you see cloaked figures' boots, basically, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah. There's trouble.
So he attacks her, kind of pins Chris down. You're thinking this could be it.
Yeah.
Riley grabs something pointy. I don't think it was a butcher knife. It was something that you like stick in the ham because they were doing.
Oh yeah, one of the skewers or
yeah,
something like that.
and gets him right in the back with that.
Yes.
And now we're running.
And
away.
now we're running. We're getting to the car.
Yep.
Again, this is the point where I'm like, Chekhov's car ride. If you're in a car in a horror movie, please, for the love of God, pay attention to the road. But luckily, nothing bad happened. They're just kind of arguing because
oh my God.
Riley gets it in her head.
Hold on. We both got very excited and are forgetting something, so please excuse us. This is the scene when they take down the frat brother at the front of, in the kitchen, I think. They unmask one of the hooded figures.
No, they don't.
They unmask him and finally realize they're frat brothers.
Oh, maybe one of them. Or
yeah,
there was one scene where they go to unmask one of the dead ones, and then another one appears, and they have to run. That was right before the kitchen scene. Okay, I see what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we finally do see that. It's
I think it was in the kitchen that they unmasked him.
Yeah.
And then they realize it's a frat brother.
Yeah.
So,
surprise.
Yeah, which we're like, duh, at this point.
Obviously.
So yes, they're in the car. A hooded figure does show up in the door and shoots an arrow at them at the very last minute as they shut the car door.
Mm-hmm.
The director randomly said that has always been a fear of hers.
Okay.
I'm like, I don't know where you grew up or what you've been experiencing, but I don't think I've ever been concerned of running and trying to shut a door and have an arrow shot at it. But
we all have irrational fears. One of mine is appendicitis.
Also good for her for putting one of her fears into her movie. I love that.
Yeah, I love that too. Right? What scares you?
Yes, yeah. And then I like that. So as this is happening, so they're in the car and they are kind of starting to argue a little bit. We're getting the security guard gets a call and they're like, something's happening at this address. It
was like number Elm Road, and I was like, is this a call to Nightmare on Elm Street, perhaps? Because it wasn't called Elm Road in the original movie, so I'm not quite sure what they were doing there. But anyway,
but so at least I was kind of watching, assuming obviously this cop or security guard is going to show up at the sorority house that we're watching.
Yes, and
he shows up at the other sorority house,
a different one, and it's chaos, bedlam.
Yeah.
There are girls on top of frat boys stabbing.
I love it.
I loved it too.
Stabbing with the unicorn head.
Ah, yeah, that's great.
And the big theme of this movie is the items that the men killed the sorority sisters with in the original. She gave to the women in this movie.
That's cool.
To kill the frat boys. And I was like, fucking genius.
That is.
Fucking
That's
genius.
very genius. I do really appreciate
So, we get the sorority sister stabbing the frat brother. We get the security guard standing in the doorway, and bam, right in the back, security guard is no more because he is worthless.
Useless. Yeah.
Yeah.
Useless.
Sorry,
the synchronicity there. Useless and the worthless was pretty good. Yeah, but I really loved how that was shot because I was fully expecting him to just roll up, and I was like, oh no, are these girls going to get in trouble for killing a bunch of frat boys? But no, it's clearly this is an attack that is happening across the campus, across the sorority houses.
And you know what I kind of made a note of is like what an awesome kind of metaphor for how assault against women is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is not an isolated event.
Oh, no.
So while an assault is happening in one sorority house, it is probably happening in multiple sorority houses.
Yeah, it is epidemic.
Yes. Yeah.
On several different levels, actually. Again, read Men Who Hate Women. There's a lot of really depressing statistics in there, really enraging stuff, but a lot of stuff that really enlightening, I think, in a way that it makes it holistic of like, this is a widespread, systemic, much, much larger issue than is ever given credit for. Like, I think especially how interesting it is that like misogyny and like crimes against women are so infrequently charged as hate crimes, even though so many things are motivated by a pure hatred for women, which is that's a hate crime, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting.
I think books like that are really important because they may be slightly difficult to get through, but I think once you are educated at a higher level, it is I don't know if I'm at a base saying easier, but it's like it is easier to I almost want to say diagnose it and try to help educate others and basically point the bullshit out. And then you might have more specific things to cite in those conversations because those people that you get in those conversations with sometimes think it's all bullshit.
Well, there's something like simultaneously like maddening and empowering and understanding that there are systemic things that are happening. That's why like I was a sociology major, so that's why sociology drove me insane, is because I was able to start seeing things in a systematic manner, right? And that makes you feel very small, but it also helps with like feelings of isolation, of understanding that like this it happens everywhere. Everybody is struggling. Anyway, back to the car ride. Riley's kind of putting the pieces together. She is thinking back to the statue. She is thinking back to the black blood and all these frat boys, and she's like, we have to go to whatever the Deeks, the Deek house, the frat house where this is kind of all happening. Chris does not want to do that. So Riley kind of lunges for the wheel, and I'm like, don't do that. And Chris pulls over. Riley gets out, goes on her way with a shovel.
I made a note. I was like, the shovel's an interesting choice.
It is. It's plastic.
I'm skipping over my notes. We skipped a step. So in the process of getting out, and I only bring this back because it's a nugget to the OG.
Yes.
In trying to get out, one of the hooded figures comes up, and Riley saran wrap bag over the head.
Yes.
One of our kills from the OG. So that's how he killed the girl in the attic.
Oh yeah.
And Riley said, "Not today, bro."
Yep, not happening. We're flipping the script.
Sorry, I can't
quite literally
help with my
nuggets.
I just love them all. I love this movie so much.
Good. We love Easter eggs. I think there's something very fun.
So again, though, so it's like, no matter how mad you would get, why would you isolate yourself right now? Why on earth would you get out of a car and be like, I've got my handy-dandy shovel, I'm gonna go on my own? No, Riley, I have to say you're a bit of an idiot.
Yeah, that was a bad move.
The girls will come back to get you.
Yeah,
but anyway, so
eventually.
she gets out of the car and has her handy-dandy shovel.
Yeah, it's pink. It's plastic. She's gonna kill people with it, or she's gonna try.
And she's like injured and limping at this point. Very Very final girl-esque.
Very final
We're
girl.
painting Riley
And
as the final girl.
That's probably the implication, right?
Yeah.
They're setting it up for her to be the final girl,
Exactly.
and like even if that means her striking out alone.
Yeah.
But she's going off, and then who appears? But Landon pops up out of nowhere.
I cannot wait to. I'm waiting till the end of the episode, but I have a nugget about Landon that I just feel like you're gonna implode when I tell you about it.
It's stressing me out, man. I do. Okay, so he's like, what is happening? Because as we mentioned, Riley is a mess, right? But I do like what they did with the way that he asked her, because she's on a mission, right? And he's like, what do you need from me? Instead of him being like, hey, what's wrong? What happened? Asking for an explanation, being like, calm down, something like that. He just immediately is like, what do you need from me in this situation? And I was like, okay, again, that's something that could only be written by a woman.
1,000%. 1,000%. So while she has ran into Landon, we still have Chris in the car.
Yes.
And Chris has driven by the other sorority house and sees the I keep wanting to say police car, but it is not a police car, it's campus security. And she obviously stops and is kind of looking, and then the girls just hop in.
Yeah,
obviously, as one does, because you're like, I know her, I'm gonna get in this car because I need to get out of this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we kind of cut back to Riley and Landon.
Yep.
They're heading up to the frat house, and Landon's kind of psyching himself up.
Yeah.
And Riley is once again skulking around in the shadows, right? As she does. So Landon goes in, and he is smashing things, and yelling, and like
it kind of ties back to like he donated like the soundboard or something for it, and he's trying to act like he's pissed that it's now been ruined.
Yeah, and then after he makes a big old ruckus, the cloaked figures descend, and they all pop up one by one like little cockroaches. And
which I can't fathom even as a man, if you walked into a fraternity house and they were in like cloaked hoods, why would you not feel like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys?
I don't know if I would just like be afraid, or if I would just start laughing, honestly.
I think
because it's like if a grown man came at me and he's wearing a cloak, how am I supposed to take you seriously?
I would definitely laugh at first, and then I'd probably be like, oh shit, I need to get out of here.
Yeah. So take it away from here with the boys. And
it gets kind of muddy here because there's lots of
little speeches.
Yeah. So she gets in, and they basically knock her out because she's trying to get to the statue. They knock her out, right?
Oh, we gotta rewind a little bit once more. Just because Landon gets, I don't know, apprehended or something, and she gets in, she's going for the statue, and then she hears screaming. Screaming for help.
Right, Helena.
Yeah. Yep.
Traitor.
Spoiler alert. She hears screaming for help. This part pissed me off so much, because I'm like, if you know that all of this is stemming from this fucking statue, then, and you're right in front of the statue with your fucking little pink shovel, go knock over the statue and then go see what your friend needs. Like, don't, you're right, you were at the finish line, and that just bothers me so much.
I know what role I'm fucking putting you in my horror movie.
I'll smash
the bitch that I need to get some shit done.
Yeah. Just do that.
So, but that is correct. So she was headed there, and that is what derails her. Yes.
So she hears Helena screaming, and so she's alive. I thought at first that it was going to be like a fake, some kind of little ghosty voice or something. Like
a recording almost.
Yeah, because I thought for sure she was dead, but she's not.
Yeah. They shot this well, because they absolutely implied that she was dead.
Yes.
And she obviously is not. She is just part of a ploy.
Yeah, so she goes in, Riley is trying to free her, she's all tied up, and she's like, oh my god, I thought I was going to be trapped here forever, and then she kind of turns, and then this devious little smirk comes on her face, and then the cloaked figure then comes in, knocks Riley out.
Yes.
And then we are slowly waking to cult bonanza.
Yeah.
In the
Hooded
grand
figures
hall.
and the tapping of the paddles and
What's up with the paddles? Is that a sex thing?
that. You know, I don't know what happens behind closed doors of fraternity houses. I have heard some fucking stories from Rush Week, but who knows? So they've got their little frat paddles, and I didn't take exact notes, but Creepy McGee, the professor, is kind of like, again, giving like a bit of a misogynistic lecture about these fraternity brothers and how important it is. My translation would be the importance of toxic masculinity making the world go round, and how men rightfully need to be running things and women just get in the way.
Again, it's this this victim mentality that like people like who are like kind of fall in line with this like men's rights activists, incel, meshed in with like these are all archetypes basically from Men Who Hate Women, the book, and like all kind of mashed in together with this idea that women are both inferior and somehow also a threat.
Yeah.
And then also are like, just a combination of those. And I think that this point, I will read this this quote, right? Because I found his little speech really interesting in this way that it was kind of it was delivered in a way that felt over the top, right? Like this whole thing felt over, like this mentality felt over the top. And, you know, I was on Reddit doing as I do and my little Reddit things. And I thought it was really interesting in the reviews that I was reading about this movie. It received such visceral hatred.
Oh, yeah.
From men.
It took me right back to Jennifer's Body because, again, I went down my Google review route, which is like 1-star and 2-star rating. But what did you find?
I just all kinds of stuff. It was like, oh, this whole thing was just charged with like all this feminist bullshit, like these feminazis, and this terminology is found in these online communities like the incel community and involuntary celibate, if you don't know, the men's right activist community, the men going their own way community, which are all like kind of enmeshed in each other, all huge online communities, right? That will just rag on anything that is even vaguely PC, vaguely feminist, or anything like that. And it all stems from this like this both this threat, this idea, this just deeply misogynistic kind of nonsense. And I think that this quote really stood out to me from Men Who Hate Women. MRAs, men's rights activists, have identified a set of very real problems and grievances, from job safety for manual laborers to substandard mental health provisions and parental rights. But when it comes to assigning blame, they have taken aim at precisely the wrong target. It is not women or even feminists who have limited, frustrated, diminished, hurt, and damaged men, but masculinity itself, or rather, our society's constricting, toxic, self-defeating version of what it means to perform being a man. So, so I look at like the reviews who are like said that this is over the top and ridiculous, and then I look at these leagues and leagues of people who are actually literally saying what the professor is saying and believing what the professor is saying in a very real, very not cartoony kind of way, right?
Oh, the professor and the frat brothers to me are not that far off base.
No, they're not. And the people who think that they are and think that they're caricatures are not an ounce of self-awareness, not an ounce of like any kind of thing that resembles reality, because this is reality, unfortunately. You know? So yeah, I just that was like such a this whole kind of last 5-ish minutes were some of like what really kind of unsettled me with how real it is.
Oh yeah, 100%. That was an incredible nugget that was well tied together. The only thing I have to add is one of my favorite aspects of the reviews I was reading. Well, I watched this with my girlfriend, and even my girlfriend. I'm sorry, did you not see the Helena character where there are women that will identify with that, and that is the route that they pick, and it's like the way these men are like, well, this woman didn't agree with it, so it can't be that good. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, your teensy tiny brains.
Absolutely. And yeah, so the professor gives his speech, and then, kind of Helena makes her big reveal of being this traitor who delivered these objects that were used to track women who are disobeying and stepping out of line.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
so that was part of the spiel, is he did explain, like, it basically gives them supernatural powers to I forget the term they use, but basically, like, act against women who
yeah.
will act out, is how
Yeah.
they put it.
So
And
Hawthorne was a master of the dark arts, which okay, that is a little cartoony. But so he enabled this ritual or whatever to make it so men, can take their power back from the evil women who are stepping out of line or whatever, right?
And then they will spare the women that will
Obey.
get in line and obey. Hence Helena.
Yes.
And I will say, this is something that I love in movies, which I think, unfortunately, it's just the nature of the fact that human beings are watching them and some people need their hands held. Like, I love, like, to me,
media literacy ain't great.
yeah, like, to me, the shot of, it's literally like an altar, and you see Diva Cup, comb, maybe even vibrator.
Yeah, maybe.
If I would take time and actually read, but we're in the thick of it. I'm just gonna wing it. So there are things throughout the movie that are on this altar.
Yes.
So
The
to me,
Easter eggs.
You're watching, you see this, you've watched the 90 minutes, you connect the dots, and you know Helena is the problem that is given this.
Yes.
Well, then they have to go the step further, and then we get the flashback of each scene.
Yeah.
I hate when they know that they have to spoon feed 80% of the viewers to get what's happening.
Yeah, I do too. And then they still give it 1-star review, right?
Yeah,
It's like, I that also bothers me because I'm a big proponent of, like, well, trust your audience, but honestly, that's hard to do.
Yeah, you can't nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah, you really can't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say that, like, this Helena's betrayal, and I don't want to say that it is the most unsettling part of the film, because that feels sexist to say, right? That the female betrayer is going to be the thing that I take the most offense about, right? Because it is also, like, realistic in a way that, like, this exists. Like, there's people who voted in a certain way against their own interests. There's people who stay with people who act that way, So it is this whole idea of, like, internalized misogyny and sexism. It is so it's so unsettling because it feels so alien.
Yeah.
It's like I can't understand why, but at the same time I can, because it's like, well, play the game by the rules, climb the ladder, or just do it to survive, kind of thing,
And I think she towed this line perfectly by writing this Helena character, and then these scenes happen, and then at the very end the boys walk over and snap her neck.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
and I was like, that is actually fucking perfect.
It is.
And the director even commented on the fact that obviously the 9-month turnaround, so she kind of alluded to, like, well, the script got written, and then, like, kind of as we were shooting, we were kind of making changes as we were going.
Mm-hmm.
She said that character seemed to not be in the first iteration of the script.
Oh, interesting.
And kind of as they were shooting and things were developing, that was, like, kind of a change they wrote in at the end.
Yeah.
And I was like, one, I kind of love that.
I do too.
We were in the midst of, I would assume, shooting it, dissecting it, how are we building this? And then I think to not only write that character in, but again, it's full circle to, like, then be like, in the end, you're going to get fucked by it too. Like, you're still going to end up dead, even if you were obedient.
Absolutely. It's giving,
And you caused the death of other people. So you caused the death of other people, and you still ended up dead.
Yeah.
Hello, look around. We're all living that premise right now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's giving the wives of the husbands from, like, Handmaid's Tale and just so many iterations of that.
And then I love media and how it can grow and develop and trigger you in ways that there is no way that the writer and or director could foresee it. So they look at her and to Riley and say, "Your body, your choice."
Yeah. Yeah. I
You
that
clocked
really,
that.
I did clock that. I was like,
Because we're
oof.
currently living through a little bit of your body, my choice. And I was like, that is wild that a movie from 5 years ago
Yeah.
wrote in your body, your choice, and now women are going to get triggered by that line because people have spun that on its head.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that definitely did cause like a blood reaction to me when I heard it, because that's immediately what I thought of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to your point of just us discussing women, so they're giving this lecture to Riley about you continue to step out of line and we're going to kill you, or be obedient, and she chooses the path of safety in the moment and just, I mean, it probably honestly goes, okay, I will obey, just to give herself more time to think.
Yeah,
probably.
absolutely.
So she says she'll bow and she'll behave, and then kind of lunges and grabs the hair clip off the altar and scratches the guy.
Also, the guy happens to be Brian, who is the original.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I know they're kind of indistinguishable from each other when we get to this.
Yeah, I'm like, they're all hooded douchebags.
Yeah. Also, just really quick, I don't know if you've got there, but there's this one line that he says that, like, he's like, the statue uses this power to unlock your true alpha. And when I heard that line, I started cackling.
Oh yeah.
Because if I hear anybody
The alpha
seriously utter the word alpha in a way that is not making fun of it, I will never take you seriously, ever. Ever. You're gonna say, because there are actual men. This is in the lexicon of the of inceldom, right?
Oh yeah.
Of just like the alpha, beta, all of that stuff, and like the alpha, like, oh, I'm an alpha male, which is just so funny.
Yeah.
It's so funny because it's just so pathetic, and it's also based, that whole archetype of like the alpha wolf, based off of junk science, one study that was wrong. So just gotta put that out there.
The more you know, man. Cale is dropping the knowledge this evening.
Yeah.
So grabs a hair clip, scratches him, and then there's kind of like this tussle, and she gets pushed towards a different hooded figure that starts choking her out.
Yes.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that moment of tension. Mm-hmm. Is this the end of our final girl? How is she going to get out of this?
Yeah.
The sisters show up. And Chris, I believe, is wielding the bow and arrow.
Oh, yeah.
Freaking knows how to use her bow and arrow, shoots an arrow into the guy's back, and then we get this, like, epic, like, battlefield style sequence. Because it's Chris and then all the girls that hopped into the Jeep from women. I'm being a fraternity brother right now. Well, I feel like I could say girls because I'm like 2 decades older than them.
Yeah,
so
true.
They are
Fair.
girls to me, is my ploy in that. So the women just go rushing in, and it's frat brothers versus sorority sisters. And it's cool.
It's cool.
It's like
it
slow-mo,
rocks.
and it's all these different interactions.
It rocks. It's a fun scene. It's very triumphant. It's very like, especially after this moment where like Chris is dealing with the fact that her little sister betrayed her and all of her sisters and stuff, and it's like, and she literally said that, she's like, how could you betray your sisters? And then we get this rush of like these survivors coming in and just like slaughtering their asses. It's great.
And then Riley shatters the head.
Yes.
Statue,
the bust.
The bust, as some people would call it. And then Chris, like, picks up, like, it's not a candle, it's more than a candle, but basically something that's on fire, throws it at the professor, catches fire, and they lock him in there. Which I kind of do.
I love that too.
I'm like, burn alive, dude. Back off.
No, I love it because like one of my biggest pet peeves is like at the end of a movie and then they spare the bad guy because of some morality bullshit. Like, no, get out of here. Kill him. Just kill him.
Just kill him. I had the thought, written by a man, I don't think he's going to lock those doors and let those boys burn alive.
Probably not. He would have had them be like,
Some-
"Oh, we're better than
Yeah.
this. We're better than you." You
Yeah,
know,
like
just some bullshit like
the
that.
statue would have died, and then the boys would have like not been possessed, and
Yeah.
would have been okay.
They would have gone back to normal.
Fucking
And it's
bullshit.
like actually we weren't evil misogynists the whole time. We were just possessed by this evil statue. Which like kind of is what happens with Landon, which did bother me a little bit.
We can get there, don't you worry.
Oh my god.
So one, our biggest loss to the PG-13 rating, there is a cut scene where she picks up the thing on fire, and when she throws it, she yells, "Suck my clit!" Come on, give me that.
Really though,
that is tragic.
That is.
But if you own it, you have a extended or a cut scene to watch. So
Yeah,
just
there
a
you
note
go.
for that.
Good
And then just they escape and they're all standing out in the snow. Are you ready for your Landon nugget?
I guess. Am I?
So there is an alternate ending.
Oh,
that you can watch.
Mm-hmm.
So the ending we get, it's just like all the friends out in the snow, and then they're like looking at each other like, "Oh, we did it.
Yeah, we did it." And then it ends.
And then it ends. The alternate ending is you get that moment, and then there's a shot from behind, a little bit of Sacrifice Game-esque holding hands. So you see hand grab, hand grab, hand grab. The end is Landon's hand, and there's black sludge dripping off of it.
Interesting. So, like, what does that mean? Because he was, like, kind of possessed.
To me, that
already.
means Landon made it out, but he's still full of toxic masculinity.
Okay.
And I think it's to your answer of, like, if you ask me, I am just very much in my era that, like, all men are problematic and have problematic tendencies, even if they mean well and are. Because they are living a life that they're very privileged just because of what's between their legs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I just think I like that they didn't go that route because your ending then focuses on a man.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I was almost worried that towards the end there, they were going to have like Landon kill Brian. And because they did tussle a little bit, and I wouldn't have liked that because then it had been like the savior kind of thing happening.
She's better than that. She's not write that into her script.
Yeah. I was almost worried that that's the direction that they were going in, but I think he like tussled with another dude or something.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's interesting. It's funny because like I was just I think it's because I watched Promising Young Woman and had my heart broken that I'll never trust a well-meaning man in a movie ever again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's the end. And then I have a couple more nuggets for you.
All right, lead on me.
Okay. She did explicitly say that she chose to have several hooded figures and killers to represent kind of like the waves of toxic masculinity. And she commented in the commentary of like, actually this was in one of the interviews that's on there. She commented on like, you get over one or feel like you've gotten over one, and then something else is just coming.
Oh yeah,
that's just gonna oppress you and hold you down.
Yeah, well, it's like what we're living in right now, right? We're in like kind of this post Me Too era, and then we have like a bunch of rapists just flooding the cabinets, right? So it's like it is very much like that, this give and take of like social movements and like the backlash against them, and it's sociologically interesting, I feel like. And also makes sense too in the way that like it just carries so many faces, right? Because like you think back to the beginning of the movie where we have the obviously creepy leering dude who's following Lindsay, right? And we were making this assumption that it's like, oh, it's him, right? It's gonna be this random creep, but no, it's gonna be not always a cloaked figure, right? But these are like whatever, promising young men, right, who have their whole futures ahead of them, all that bullshit, right? But it comes from so many different faucets and different places in society, and basically every sector of it, you're going to find some kind of awful misogyny. So yeah, no, that's interesting. I like that there was multiple figures and
Yeah.
stuff and multiple that it was a greater collective instead of just one creepy dude in an attic.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
comes from a whole establishment
Yep.
that is deep roots in this whole institution. I
Yeah.
think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I know that I've said several times now this was made within a 9-month span. They did reshoots in Brooklyn. So it was hilarious on the director's commentary because as the movie's running, she's like, New Zealand, Brooklyn, New Zealand, Brooklyn. Because obviously some of these are just like rooms,
right?
So it doesn't matter. And I
yeah.
was like, that is hilarious.
That's pretty good.
And this one is the biggest nugget for everyone. So the mask that the killers are wearing
Mm-hmm.
is molded after a scold's bridle. That's SCOLDS bridle. That was an iron mask used in the 18th century to keep nagging wives quiet.
Ah, that's pretty good. That's so interesting. Oh yeah, look
I
at those.
highly encourage you to Google it because, like,
Yikes. Yeah.
what on earth?
Those are crazy.
To one, the fact that that ever even existed. Two, the fact that she did that much digging and brainstorming to find, again, something that was used against women and threw it on a man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
I love that too. I think that's really cool.
I love that.
These are freaky. If you live in Illinois, go to the Torture Museum in Chicago. It's really interesting, and I'm pretty sure they have some of these there.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I would imagine. So, I mean, I think I've made it very apparent how I feel about this movie.
Yes.
This is one of my Roman empires officially.
Yes.
I don't know why I just now realized it now because I knew that I always enjoyed this movie, but like I really think Black Christmas 2019 is now up there with Jennifer's Body. Like it is just part of my recommendation repertoire.
It's part of your canon, right? Yeah. Part of your DNA now.
How do you feel?
I liked it. I think that it had a lot to say. I think that it said its things well. I think my only issue with it is that it's just not my brand of horror. Yeah. You know? And there's nothing wrong with that. I do also want to say that I think that they handled Riley's PTSD pretty well too. I think in a really tasteful way. So I think that what it was doing was done pretty well and done in a way that still allowed some kind of like some fun, a little bit of camp, a little bit of, but also like added all of these layers into it too. Yeah. So yeah, I did like it. I wouldn't say it's my Roman Empire. Yeah. Probably because nobody got eaten. That's so real. And I do think that the PG-13 rating did really kind of dampen it for me a little bit. Because parts of it did feel really sanitized, and I think it could have gone a little deeper and been a little bit more uncomfortable. But yeah, no, I liked it.
All right. Love it. What are we yapping about this week?
What are we yapping about this week?
I didn't ask you off mic. Do you have anything to yap about this week?
Yeah, I finished American Psycho, and that was a lot. It was so much. And then I proceeded to be like, I need a palate cleanser. And then instead of picking up anything like, wholesome or joyful or nice, I picked up a nonfiction book about men who hate women. So that's kind of...
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
that happened.
Yeah, that happened. So that's kind of where I'm at. I think my obsession is starting my new book account. American Psycho was my 40th book of the year. That makes me 20 books shy of my goal.
I'm picking this up because I knew you were going to do this, and I wanted to do a comparison with my Letterboxd. Because my movies are your books. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah.
So what was your final count again?
My final count was 40. I'm on 41 with Men Who Hate Women with 180 pages left.
Okay.
I had 1 5-star rating this year. And that was a book called Young Mungo by Douglas Stuart, and that is simply because the book held me hostage. It is around 400 pages, and I read it all in one sitting, simply because I had to make sure that the main character, Mungo, was okay.
Wow.
Spoiler alert, he was not. It was devastating. I would throw this book away from me in just outrage and upset and tears. And then 20 seconds later, I'm pulling it back because I have to keep going.
Wow.
So that was like, I have not been drawn into a book like that in probably like a decade.
Oh, okay.
I have a hard time recommending it though, because it is definitely a check your triggers book. It is definitely just devastating, no happy ending. Maybe vaguely hopeful ending, but still really well written. And yeah, I was a big fan in a really kind of like, well, now I'm heartbroken and I will think about this book forever kind of way.
I got to 49 horror films this year.
Nice.
I only track my horror films. I'm not tracking everything. And so I got 49 this year. Last year I watched 108.
Oh wow.
And these are original, so like first watches.
Not like rewatches.
So if I'm doing a rewatch, I'm not gonna log it again.
Right.
And I blame the fact that this year I tackled The Walking Dead and Criminal Minds. So yeah. I think that ate my other 60 films.
Yeah, probably, because that is like 60 films worth of work. Yeah, my biggest genre was LGBTQ books, and my second biggest genre was horror, and there is a lot of overlap there. So sometimes I look at my Storygraph nonsense, and I'm like, I really am a parody of myself. Just a little cartoon.
I love that for you. You're gonna laugh about what I have to yap about this week.
Okay.
So my biggest hype is 28 Years Later trailer.
Oh my god.
One, like my OG favorite, and I could say OG because like Train to Busan grew on me.
Yeah.
The Sadness grew on me, but like my OG zombie movie where I was like, oh, okay, zombies, like this is it. 28 days later. 28 weeks later.
Yeah.
And those two, I was always like, oh, can we get like a 28 years later?
Yeah.
Like a 28 months would be weird because you wouldn't track it like that. But whatever. So if you have not watched this trailer, you have got to look it up because people are losing their mind. Yeah. So it is set to a tune, I guess.
A poem? It's a poem?
Yeah, so it's a poem. But it's a poem that is used in the military. Some people are saying to try to desensitize members of the military, and other people are saying to try to make members of the military go insane, they use it.
Yeah, it's a poem by Rudyard Kipling, who is pretty problematic, but it's read by a South African actor, maybe. Actually, I don't think that's right, but it's essentially about British Army infantrymen marching into South Africa during the Second Boer War, and which that's, you talk about imperialism and dehumanization and all that stuff. So I think that's like putting a trailer to this poem in particular, I think it's very purposeful. I think there's going to be a lot to be said.
Yeah, and I think to your comment earlier about how movie trailers so frequently ruin absolutely everything in a movie, this trailer is done perfectly. Mm-hmm. It does not give you really any hint, but still has everybody so fucking hyped for this movie. So I think it's perfect.
So hyped.
You literally only get like one shot of what I'm assuming is a zombie, but again, assuming, I don't know because they don't show you everything, like upside down, and I don't know. I think it's gonna be incredible.
Cillian Murphy's coming back.
Yes,
he was just so good, and he was one of my hyperfixation actors for like a while.
Yeah,
I just love
as he
him.
should be.
He's so good in Peaky Blinders, and I just love him, and I'm so glad that he's getting like this recognition now because he's been acting for a long time, and I just think he is a really great actor, and he's very Irish, and I love these Irish actors.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you. That's gonna be a fun.
And
fun
then,
watch.
You guys, I have a non-horror movie that I want to yap about, and I think those who are very close to me are going to be like, what the fuck is she even, why is she excited about this? And you're going to laugh if you're familiar with it. Have you seen this movie coming out on Christmas called Baby Girl?
No, I haven't even heard of it.
To anyone who's heard of it, just buckle up. Okay, so Baby Girl, the premise looks like, so Nicole Kidman plays the main woman in it.
Okay.
She's a powerful CEO. It's very much romance in the office, and she's gonna get with a male intern is definitely what's happening.
Right.
And there's very much this dynamic of powerful CEO, intern. But sexually you can tell the intern is good girl, baby girl. So they're flipping this, written and directed by a woman. That's why I'm very interested to see it.
That is gonna be
interesting. And I watched a interview with Nicole Kidman. And can you give me a Google and get me the name of the woman? Because my notes are awful this week, guys. I was too excited for Black Christmas.
Who am I looking for? Helena Region?
That sounds right.
It's an A24 film.
Yeah.
I love A24 films.
So yeah, it was an interview with her and Nicole Kidman, and Nicole was like, when I knew that you were doing this movie, I really wanted to do it. So I'm kind of getting this vibe of I think it's gonna be made in a way that is not
interesting. Not what you expected.
Yeah,
so
not the stereotypical girl, powerful woman in the office gets with an intern. I just think there's going to be something to it that.
So she directed Bodies, 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 which has been on our list.
I freaking knew it. I knew that
so
it
that's
was giving a vibe.
It is giving a vibe of this is not going to be what we expected to be, I think, because that's
so
interesting.
And then hilariously, so it's coming out on Christmas, and then I was like, maybe I could do a double feature and take myself to go see Nosferatu and Baby Girl. Check both boxes.
What a vibe. I love that.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to yap about this week.
Wonderful. I do kind of want to see that Bob Dylan movie just because I am kind of a Timothy Chalamet. But also the actor who plays Johnny Cash is Boyd Holbrook, and I also really love him.
Not familiar with him, but I have seen photos of your boy Timmy in that movie, and I was like, oh, he actually really looks like him.
Yeah, he really does.
Which I would not have pegged that.
No,
I guessed that.
No, I would not have guessed that.
Yeah,
I'm not digging this current era he's in right now though. The little mustache, the little hairdo. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing to him? Please,
might be going through it. I don't know.
Maybe he is.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
The next episode, Candyman 2021.
Yes, this one I have actually seen before recording.
Yeah, the Candyman remake.
Yes,
I'm excited. I really enjoyed this movie.
I did too. I saw it in theaters.
Oh, I did not. I really wish that I had a better memory of my first watches of movies. I don't remember the first time I watched Black Christmas 2019, but I'm obviously obsessed with it. Enjoying it enough to put it in a podcast. So, we're gonna dive into Candyman 2021. You can stream her on Amazon Prime. I would highly recommend watch both. Watch the OG and watch 2021.
I think I need to do that because I might have seen the OG, but it might have been one of the things where I had it on the background was on my phone or something.
But yeah, so that will be next episode.
All right.
Everybody have a wonderful Christmas. Watch Black Christmas. Yes, oh,
I'm so sorry.
I gotta want to keep that in.
Yeah, you gotta keep that. That was fun.
You guys, so the AI in the program that we record on does these, and I normally cut them out, but I think we're gonna keep that one in. I think it was because you said Yule, and that the heart should be with Yule and not with Christmas. Oh, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, and I was just gonna say, maybe you watch Black Christmas 2019 with your family, or maybe watch the 2006 where people eat people's eyeballs, or Terrifier 3. Just be a menace at the holidays.
Yeah, do it. Be a menace.
Pick the family movie to watch. Bye, guys. We'll see you in 2025.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Build yourself, bitch.
Up in the frat house, me and you. And you know what I'm there to do?
We're drinking and kissing. What comes next?
You and I have SCX.
I didn't know. Ho, ho, ho. I didn't know. Yes, up in the frat house, one true fact. And that is that I got attacked. Up in the frat house, shit went down. And I'm telling everyone in town, I didn't lead you on for goodness sake. I couldn't have 'cause I wasn't awake. Ho, 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 I didn't know. Ho, 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 I didn't know. Yes, up in the frat house, click, click, click. What you guys do in here is sick. Protecting you. No, he said, she said, what was true? Don't say that this was my fault, 'cause what you did is called assault. Ho, 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 I didn't know. Ho, 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 I didn't know. Yes, up in the frat house, click, click, click. You slipped me a roofie and then you're dead.